Welcome to the Career Ready podcast. Learn about resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn, interviewing, and all the things you need to be career ready with the Career Services Center at College of DuPage. I'm one of your hosts, Jordan Rembrecht. Later in today's episode, you'll hear my interview with Chris DeCoke, Director of Career Services at Aurora University.
And I'm your other host, Rebecca Harrington. I'm going to start our episode today by answering a listener mailbag question submitted to careerpodcast@cod.edu. Today's question is, I know I need to look for an internship, but I'm not sure when I should start looking for one. What's the best time to look? I'm going to say the quick answer is earlier than you think, right?
Absolutely.
If you're hoping to do an internship in the summer, you should start looking in the fall semester, September or October. Now, that's not for every internship, but really it's many large companies will post those summer internships months in advance. Now, smaller companies, it might be more like the winter or early spring, but you'll have the most options. I always think if you start at least 6 months before the internship would start. Would you agree with that? Does that make sense? Jordan used to work on the other side, yes, hiring the interns.
Absolutely.
So.
It was always an earlier time frame than I thought for summer internships, as early as September, October, like you mentioned. So It's earlier than you think for a lot of individuals.
Yeah. And it's also a smart time to give yourself a time to update your resume, meet with your career services office and, make sure that you're applying to multiple positions. You don't want to just rely on one. So really, you want to start the process maybe 7 to 9 months before you anticipate doing the internship. So for example, if you're looking for that summer internship, maybe start in August or September with working on your resume, visiting career services, getting ready, looking for opportunities, looking at organizations that you might want to look at their internship program. And, it can go all the way through February or even March, if it's a smaller company. If you want to do an internship starting in the spring, then you could start searching as early as August or September even. I think that there's not as many that start like in January, but they do exist. It does happen. So I think starting kind of the summer before or early fall is a good idea. And then if you're looking to start an internship in the fall, right? So starting an internship in September, you want to backtrack that right to probably mid-spring semester, so February or March. So again, the rule is earlier than you would think. And, starting off early takes the time pressure off of you, right? And gives you more time to find the right fit. So don't wait till the last minute, plan ahead, stay organized, and give yourself the best chance to land an experience that will help you be career ready.
I think it's also good that you're going to be one of the first few applicants too, the earlier that you apply.
Good point. Yes, because those first ones that come in, I feel like as a recruiter, right, you kind of have more time to look at those applicants. And then as towards the end, you just get a whole bunch right at the end. Then you're maybe kind of going through things more quickly.
Yeah. Or maybe the job will still be posted, but maybe their candidate's already been identified. So you want to make sure that you're applying at the beginning. So having that process started early definitely is beneficial.
Definitely. All right. Well, we're going to next up get to hear Jordan's interview with Chris DeCoke from Aurora University.
Thank you so much for joining us here today, Chris.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So before we get started, can you please provide us a quick introduction, or as we like to say, your elevator pitch?
Yeah, love a good elevator pitch. So I'm Chris. I'm the Director of Career Services at Aurora University. My office mainly helps students connect their education to their future goals, right? So that's things like internships, on-campus jobs, career exploration, or professional skills like resumes and LinkedIn and things like that. Specifically for transfer students, we like to focus on making sure that you can hit the ground running by kind of connecting quickly with opportunities and starting to build that network at a new school.
Excellent. Thank you. I totally agree with that. We see a little bit of a wide range here in our office too, everywhere from the career exploration to the actual job search. So it's cool to see that students can pick that up and jump right in really quickly too, even at a new school.
Yeah.
Thank you. What would you say are some unique challenges that transfer students face when it comes to career development? And maybe just the job internship search overall at a new school. And maybe what are some ways that they could overcome some of those challenges?
Yeah. So transfer students, I think, they have a lot of advantages, right? They're coming in with a little bit more experience than the average student. But I think a couple of things that might make things more challenging for a transfer student would be arriving later means that you have less time to build those networks at the four-year school, right? Finding mentors and connecting with faculty and resources. So it might feel like you're a little bit behind your peers who started as freshmen who already know the system while you're learning the system. And I think sometimes there might be some uncertainty with kind of how their major might align with their career goals. But luckily, it's easy to overcome, right? It just means getting started as early as you can and being as proactive as you can. So things like meeting with career services early, getting involved on campus, joining student orgs, and connecting with faculty in your major classes will really set you up for success, just like somebody who started as a freshman.
Thank you so much. Totally with you on that. I know that finding networks, it's good to start doing earlier on, even to like at a high school level for your second year of school. So it's good once you're feeling maybe, oh, I am a little bit behind if I am entering my junior year. Hopefully you have a little bit under your belt, but then they can start to find those mentors there as well within their program.
Yeah, the big thing is just that you don't have to do it on your own, right? If you can use your network and use the resources that are available to you, you'll be okay.
Thank you. What are some things transfer students can do during their first semester or before they transfer to get ahead in their internship or job search?
Yeah, there's a lot, right? Obviously, I think I'm a little bit predisposed to saying that I think you should meet with career services right away. I know at AU, we will meet even with incoming students, right? So you don't have to wait until you started classes to meet with us. We're around all summer long. And then getting involved. Honestly, I feel like I'm going to say this a lot, but building your network is really key. And a lot of that is by getting involved, right? So getting a job on campus or joining a student organization or even volunteering, those are really going to help you kind of get connected. And then the other things are kind of the boring things that you just have to do that my office can help with as well. And really anywhere you transfer to, things like making sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and reflects that you're transferring to a new school, right? And that you have a new major focus, updating your resume. If the school you're transferring to is a handshake school that has handshake, I'd say, logging on there and a handshake to kind of see what sorts of internship opportunities are out there. A lot of times those will be posted early and you can take a look as soon as you get your login credentials, really. And then if you're moving locations, if you're going to a school that's not where you were going before, I'd say taking a look at local employers or any kind of maybe partnership that institution might have with employers in the area.
Excellent. That's awesome. Really cool to hear that you'll meet with students even before the school year starts if they're an incoming student. That's awesome.
Yeah. For us, basically, as soon as you have committed to being a student at AU, you have access to everything. So
that's wonderful. I know you mentioned Handshake as well. We don't use Handshake at College of DuPage, but I'm familiar with it from my time when I worked North Central and was a student. So it's a great platform. So for all the other college students, I know that a lot of schools use that. So I definitely...
Yeah, it's a pretty common one. Most schools will have some kind of a chat board platform, right? So if it's not Handshake, go ahead and check out whatever that school is using, I'd say.
Sure. Yeah, we're on the College Central Network with Chaps Get Hired, but Handshake is a great one as well.
Yeah, we used to have College Central Network. We switched to Handshake, 8 years ago or so.
Yes, thank you. What would you say would be some ways that transfer students can highlight their experiences from a prior college as a strength when applying for jobs or internships?
Yeah, I think the biggest strength that you can highlight is being able to be adaptable and successful in environments, right? Just being a transfer student is already a big strength that shows employers that you're able to adapt and kind of let you have that growth mindset. I think emphasizing transferable skills, right? So if you were involved in any kinds of leadership roles or jobs or things from the past, those are really good. And then updating the language a little bit that you use, even in interviews or things like that, to talk about what you did at your previous institution versus what you're doing, in your role transferring to your new institution. Employers like to see that kind of continuity, and they like to be able to see you're making connections between past experiences and how you've built on that and how you're going to use those now to set you up for success in the future. Because that's really what a career is too, right? It's a lot like transfer.
Sure.
So you're going to transfer jobs. And so showing that growth and being able to show that you have some persistence and some resilience are huge.
Sure. Maybe if you happen to have an example of that, the transferability. So you spoke to like the continuity of demonstrating like the past school is a good translation to the new school. How have you seen that maybe play out on like a resume or in someone's experience?
Yeah, we see it a lot. We see it a lot in internships, right? So if you were, let's say you started at a community college and you got those prerequisite things out of the way, if you could talk a little bit about even coursework, maybe you didn't have a job, right? Because you're focusing on your schooling. If you could talk about your coursework and how that is going to be something that can set you up for an internship or past jobs, right? If you've had a previous job, focus on the skill set that you used at that job and kind of talk about how that skill set is going to help you land an internship. So it's all about kind of just building on the steps of your experience. We always like to tell students there's no such thing as bad experience.
Sure.
Any job or any volunteer role or any kind of class experience you've had, chances are there are some skills in there you can highlight that an employer might like to see.
Sure. I know you said one of our favorite words, transferable skills. We love saying that one in our office. So it's good to think about that too in the lens of transferring schools. I like that analogy that you had. It's similar to like changing careers or changing.
Yep.
That's a good.
Yeah, very similar, which is that we know, if you think about the 8 NACE competencies, right? Career and professional development is one of them, right? And so transferring schools very much is in line with that skill.
Excellent. Thank you. And then from your perspective, how is the current job market looking for recent grads and upcoming graduates?
Yeah, so I was actually just working on pulling some data for a report for our board on this. The current job market is a little wonky. It's very competitive out there right now. So there's a lot of uncertainty, right, with employers. And I think that's leading to maybe some slower hiring at the moment. And then we also know AI is really disrupting entry-level roles quite a lot, right? And so the big things to pay attention to, people are still getting jobs, right? Just because the job market is not like on fire and amazing right now doesn't mean there are no jobs. And employers really want to see demonstrated skill set, right? They care about the technical knowledge, so they care about you having your sort of stuff from your major, whatever you're studying, but they also really value these other career readiness skills, things like communication, teamwork, critical thinking, problem solving. And so focusing on those on your resume is really helpful. And then finding some way to have applied experiences, right? So whether that's through an internship or through projects in class or even through volunteering to show that you can actually put the things you're learning in class into practice seem to be doing really well. And then the other thing is networking. Always network, right? It's a lot about knowing the right people and using your network to help you cut through kind of the noise of all the other applicants that are out there.
Sure. I'd say right now too, I'm sure you'd agree, networking is more important than ever. The connections that you have and whatnot as the job market maybe takes a turn and goes through ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Would you say it sounds like you've been pulling some data? Any interesting trends or things that you've noticed as you've been going along with that?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is that we're just now recently starting to see kind of a downturn in the amount of jobs added, right, monthly. And so I don't know if that's a blip or if that's the start of a larger trend. And then the other big thing is just that AI has been very disruptive. I think I mentioned that. It's really, unfortunately, the things that AI is good at automating are entry-level role. And so it seems like the job market and industries in general are going to have to rethink a little bit what their entry-level pipeline looks like because they will still need employees, right? And traditionally, those entry-level roles are where you get people started and where you train them up. If we're automating a lot of that with AI, then businesses are going to have to figure out how they're going to get those higher level employees in if there's no way for them to build experience.
Sure. So it's, sounds like job seekers are, taking some steps themselves, but then also to employers as well, thinking about how they're bringing in new talent and how that's affecting how their organization could look. But what I like to echo on what you said earlier, it's not that people aren't getting hired. It's just maybe it looks a little bit different than before, but it's a good time to utilize some of these skills, really focus on the skill set that you can convey to employers and whatnot that you've developed from your experience in your academic.
Yeah. There are still jobs out there. People are still getting jobs, but I think the old way of looking on a job board and just mass applying to as many jobs as you can is maybe much less effective right now. Really networking and, trying to kind of find a human to connect to is where people are having much more success.
Yes, just getting in front of a person, whether it's
right.
yourself or getting your resume in front of a person. I just thank you so much. How important are internships, would you say? And what advice do you have for students who are struggling to land that first one?
Yeah. So I think tying this back to the last question that we just talked about, internships really are the new entry-level job, right? That is where companies are saying they are going to put their resources to try and help people grow and where they're going to focus on that entry-level pipeline. So I'd say internships, especially right now, are more critical than ever, right? We always like to tell students at AU, most of our majors require some kind of an internship, but we still have a few that don't. And we always tell students, even if you're in a major that doesn't require one, you should plan to do one, right? Because that's how you're going to set yourself up for success. And so they're very important. But if you're a student who's struggling with finding an internship or struggling with getting one, because they're so important now, they're very competitive. There are some other options too, right? There are things like micro internships. At AU, we have a partnership with Parker Dewey, and so they post micro internships. These are kind of short term, a little bit more tasky kind of jobs that you can do that helps you build experience. And other things like part-time jobs or volunteering or campus projects. Anything really where you can show some demonstrated experience, and then you can use that to build into an internship. The more experience you have, the easier it becomes to get an internship, and then the easier it becomes to get a job.
Sure. Thank you so much. I like what you say. I quoted it when I wrote it on my notes here, but internships are the new entry-level job. That's a good way of thinking about that, especially when, like you mentioned previously, if AI is, sadly replacing some of these entry-level jobs, think of it in the mindset of the internship is that entry-level job and is your chance to get a foot in the door with an employer, which is more important now than ever.
Yeah, I think the other important thing here is that really to be competitive, I think applicants need to be comfortable with using AI, right? And that can be tricky sometimes with classes and things. And there are classes where you really can't or don't want to use AI because you need to be the person doing the learning. But you do have to find a way to become comfortable using AI to make yourself more efficient, because that's another big thing that I think is going to give people an advantage in the job market.
Good. Thank you. And I know last season we did some episodes on how AI has impacted the job search and whatnot. So it's good for our listeners to listen to some of those prior episodes because it's still an important thing.
Yeah.
What are some top tips that you have for writing a standout resume, especially for students who may not have much formal work experience yet?
Yeah, this advice I think is the same whether you have a lot of experience or not a ton of experience, but really is to lead with skills, right? We see students who are putting together the first resume and it's a list of things they did, tasks they did, instead of a list of accomplishments or skills that they used. And so leading with skills. So leading with skills, right? So things like if you have had any jobs ever, leading with the skills, but also skills you used in coursework, skills you used in projects you've worked on, or even things you've been involved in school up until now, that can be huge, right? So that, and using action verbs, we always talk about that on the resume. You should start with a strong action verb. I don't like to see things like assisted with, things like that. You want
responsible for,
right? Show me what you actually did, what the skills you were that you used. And if you can quantify results ever,
sure,
throw a number in there, right? And then the other thing is what I find is a lot of times students will really undersell their skill set. What to you might just be a thing you did, a project you did in school, or an athletic team you were on, or a job that you held. You're still using transferable skills, and it can be difficult sometimes to kind of brag about yourself because we're programmed not to. So I'd say talk to career services, and have them help you kind of bring those skills out, because chances are you have more transferable skills than you think you do. Sometimes talking to somebody about it can be really helpful.
I agree with that. Sometimes it takes like an appointment for like interview prep or a mock interview to really go through, and I'll tell a student, like, you're not really selling yourself fully. Like, I read your resume. There's some cool stuff on here. Let's make sure you can verbalize it. Or if we're in a resume appointment and it's like, you just told me these amazing things, but they're not on the piece of paper for you. So how can we get that out there?
Yeah, really, a career services appointment is a great way to kind of find those skills, because chances are they're in there, right? You just need somebody to help you kind of pull them out.
Sure. I'm just curious, so maybe some of our listeners that are interested in AU, how big is your department or your office?
Yeah, so we've grown a lot. For a long time, we were a one-person department. There are now 8 of us in various different roles. And so we have 2 full-time career counselors who just do the career counseling appointments, but we also have, an internship coordinator. We have somebody who just focuses on employer relations and experiential learning stuff. And so there's a lot of us, and we work with all students in all modalities. So all in all, we support about 6,000 students throughout the time. But yeah, definitely talk to a career counselor. Even talk to, the other big thing is informational interviews. If you can find somebody who's doing the job that you want and talk to them, that can be super, super helpful as well.
Absolutely. We encourage too, like professors always have good insight on, their industry, obviously, as well. And they have connections to that maybe career services doesn't always have. So we always, good combination of work with career services, but then work with your professors, because they will always defer to them with the knowledge in their.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we always remind students to the faculty are, they're credentialed experts in their field, right? So they know a ton of people, and they know a lot about what they're talking about. So they're good people to talk to. Yeah.
Awesome. So as we wrap up here, what are 3 things that every transfer student should do during their first year at a new school to stay career ready?
All right. So I'm going to, again, I think bring out that position a little bit there, but I'd say thing number 1 is meet with career services as soon as you can. All right. So in your first semester, make sure you come in and see us and talk about what your goals are, and just to do a check-in and make sure you're on the right track. I mean, thing number 2 would be to be involved, right? I'm always telling students, don't just go to class and go home. You should find something to get involved in on campus, because it helps with so many things. And then the third thing would be to make sure that you are keeping your, I'd call it like a professional toolkit, up to date, right? So that's your LinkedIn profile, your resume, your handshake profile if your school uses that. And then, things like having an elevator pitch and stuff like that. All stuff that career services can help with, but also great things to just keep up to date as you go.
Wonderful. I like too that you mentioned maybe just an initial check-in even for a first semester. What could some of that like ongoing support look like as a student maybe starts their first semester, but then gets closer to graduation?
Yeah. So, I can't speak for necessarily every department at every school, but at AU, we very much try to focus on a relationship-based model of career advising, right? And so the initial check-in, you don't have to feel like you have everything figured out. We just want to hear what your goals are. What do you like to do? What do you want to do? That helps us build a little bit of a picture. And then throughout the life cycle of a student, as they get closer to graduation, we'll help kind of narrow that down a little bit for them. So, once we have the goals piece figured out, we can talk about what kinds of experiential learning opportunities there are to get the skill set that you need kind of honed and ready to go. And then once you get closer to graduation, we can help with plugging into that alignment work and, meeting people that are in the field and that kind of thing. So kind of builds over time, but it's important to get started early.
Wonderful. We definitely echo that here in our office. The earlier you could get started, the better. And so start thinking about these things even in the context of as you're picking your classes and as you're thinking about ways you could get involved, think about it from the long-term perspective as well.
Yeah, we're fortunate that we partner pretty closely with our academic advising, so across Center for Academic Advising, and they're also pretty career focused. And so there's a nice partnership between those two departments where they really will work with the student too and make sure that the classes you're picking align with what your professional goals are and kind of with what the job market expects.
Wonderful. I love the idea too of thinking about some of your goals earlier too. That's the career exploration piece helps with that, and you can start to identify what some of those goals are, and then work with your office and advising and put that into action.
Yep, exactly.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. I really appreciate all of your insight and appreciate your time and being able to speak to us a little bit more about you and the career services model.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Thank you so much for having me on again.
Thank you.
Jordan, that was a great interview. Thank you so much. I think our transfer students, we are at a community college, right? So a lot of our students are going to be transferring, and I think they're worried about the transfer. And, I'm always worried for them with the transfer. So it was really great to hear, from someone on the other side of it. And I think for me, one of the really interesting things that he got to right away was that transfer students need to get connected quickly and network at their new school. And I always think of networking as networking with employers, but he was talking about networking with people at the new college that you're at. And that includes, of course, reaching out to career services. So, what did you think about what he had to say about networking at a new school?
Absolutely. It's, I was a transfer student myself, having graduated from College of DuPage and transferring to a four-year university. And it can be hard. You may feel a little bit behind, the timeline for everything when you're coming in as a transfer student. A lot of students there have already established their connections. So it's easy to, feel behind, but it's a good reminder, too, to jump right in and be thinking about these things even as, summer leading up. I liked his point about, being able to reach out to career services even before as an incoming student. So things like that, I think will help really make it a smooth transition and make you not feel like you're so behind the game.
Yeah. And I know for myself, I wasn't a transfer student, but I was never very good at talking to faculty. And I realize now, of course, you really should. And I took that too as, go to career services, make sure you're getting whatever assistance you need for enrolling and financial aid and all of that. But, a lot of the students that have been there for 2 years may have already started talking to some of those faculty. They may have joined the student groups already. So I love that he was just don't wait for that, right. Join those student groups, talk to those faculty so that you can build those relationships.
Absolutely.
And then the other kind of big thing that I noticed that he talked about was his comments on the job market. I think that's something that all of us are starting to think about, that, he said things seem to be maybe a little slower, a little more uncertain, like certainly hiring still happening. It's just maybe not at the pace that it was. And then he connected that, I feel like, to internships, and that, because of the job market as it is, those internships are more important. And I think we both actually have this was an interesting thought, is that he called internships the new entry level job.
Yes.
That I was not prepared for that.
That stood out to me significantly. It was interesting, right?
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think about that?
The more I reflected on it after our discussion, it really rang true to me. A lot of times in our office, I meet with clients, students, and they say, how am I supposed to get a job that wants experience if I don't have experience? And I always think, going back to the internships idea, that is how you gain the experience. And it's interesting to think of it as that new entry-level job. But, when we know that some entry-level jobs are, unfortunately being replaced by AI, this is a way that you can really get your foot in the door, gain that experience to maybe get that higher-level job in the future.
Yeah, because I think, there is a concern with AI that some of that entry-level work is being done by AI. So maybe they don't have to hire so many entry-level students. But then, you still have to create your own pipeline, though, for people. But I think, internships is kind of the way to get that experience, so that when you hit the job market, you're already experienced, like you said, and you're already a great candidate. And then the other thing he mentioned that I just wanted to point out, because I do think it's interesting, is AI, and just that, like, students are concerned about using AI, but they need to learn to use it.
Right. And use it ethically, right?
Yeah, use it ethically. And, we did a whole series of episodes in the spring of 2025 here that you can go listen to, where we talk about how you can responsibly use AI in your job search.
Absolutely. It's very helpful even for me, too, as I'm trying to brush up on it myself. I know it's an evolving field and we're all learning it. And I think students, learning it, embracing it, all of us, really a good thing to do, but making sure we're using it ethically, but it can help you in your job search.
Yeah, we can't shy away from it because it's going to be expected. Yeah. Anything else that stood out to you from what he said?
No, I think, I really like the point about internships. I know you and I are both big advocates for internships, and think of it too, a lot of companies view this as a pipeline. You may not necessarily be guaranteed a job after an internship with that company, but it'll help set you up for success to maybe get that position at a different company, having that experience under your belt. So I really definitely echo what he was saying there, and it really gave me a lot to think about. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, so if you are a student that's going to be transferring to a new school, takeaway definitely is get out there, network, and come there with your resume ready, so that you can look for those internships right away. Yeah. And of course, you don't have to wait until you get to your 4-year school to do an internship. But even if you did one at your 2-year school, you should still do another one when you get there, and make sure you're ready for it. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks to all of our listeners, and special thanks again to Chris DeCoke for joining us on the podcast. We hope you feel better prepared for being career ready as a transfer student. We answered a listener question early in the episode, and if you have a question you want to hear answered in a future episode, you can submit it to careerpodcast@cod.edu. Join us next episode for more information to help you be career ready.